Hello guys, welcome back to my channel CodeMongo. So today we are going to study another daily problem numbered 1905, count sub-islands, right? So let's try to understand what's given in the question. So basically we have been given two matrices of the same dimensions, right? And what will happen in that those matrix, 0 will represent water and 1 would represent land, right? And all these ones would combine to form an island, right? And how they should be connected to each other, they should be connected in four direction. Diagonals are not allowed. Okay, so if they are connected in left, right, top, bottom, then they will constitute to form a single island, right? Okay, now we have to tell whether an island in the grid 2 is considered a sub island. Okay, so we have to tell whether an island given in the grid 2, like this one, the one in the red, uh, an island here, whether it is a sub island of the island given in the grid 1. Okay, so what mean by sub island is basically if you overlap these two island, right? So the island from the grid 1 should be properly able to overlap the island 2, right, in the grid 2. Okay, so that's what is meant by sub island. Okay, so if you look at the example, right, so this is one island, red one, so this is properly overlapped by the island in the first grid. Similarly, if you look at this upper one, right, six ones, these are properly being overlapped by the this island in yellow in the grid one. Right, so that's how what we have to find out, and we have to return the number of such sub-islands. It's not like whether sub-island exists or not. We have to return the number of such proper sub-islands. Okay. Now, how we are going to solve this? Let's try to understand that. Okay. Now, in the problem, if you look at it, this is grid 2, this is grid 1. Okay. Now, we know that we have to find out islands, right? So the way we find island in any matrix, right, the earlier problem that we have already solved, in that one it is a variation of that problem only, where we have been given a matrix and we have to find the island count of islands. Okay, so similarly what we are going to do, like out first we will find an island in grid 2, and then we will check basically all the lands that is represented by 1 are also present in the grid 1. Okay, what I meant by that is, in normally, let's say what we do DFS to find out the island. So from this position in grid 2, right, from this position we will start. Okay, so from here we will start and land is present. We will correspondingly check whether for that particular I and j, right, that particular coordinate, an island is also present in the grid 1. If that's the case, then it's fine, right? So we will check this is an island, right? This is the first coordinate. Then we will check this. For this also, right, there is a parallel land in grid 1. Then we will move to this island. For this also, we also have it here. Then here, then this is for that also, we also have here. Then for this coordinate, we also have in grid 1. Then for this one, we also have in right. So this is a valid sub island in grid 2. Okay, fine. Then we are going to check all the other islands. Then so one by one we will go, and then we come across this island, right? So for that correspondingly there is no land in the grid 1, so this is not a valid one, right? So if you look at it, up till now we have find out only one island in grid 2, right? Then we will come across here, then this is a island. For this island, is there a corresponding land there in the grid 1? Yes, there is, right? So we are going to increment by 1 because we have found one more possible sub island. Then we will go to this land, right? For this, there is no land in the grid 1. Then for this one, there is also not a land, right? And Then so basically what will happen is, right, when we reached here, so we will try to, so basically it is a island, right? So this is a complete island. So when we will start from here, right, so it would actually be, we will traverse this complete island as a whole because we are applying DFS. So for this we have to collectively treat as one. Okay, so when we reached here, right, so there is, we checked for this one, right, this but whole one is an island, but for if any one of them, right, if any one of them here, if even one of them is not a particular land there, right, then that complete island in the grid 2 is going to be discarded. Okay, so if you come across this, right, so we started traversing doing DFS for this particular island. We came across this one, the first cell, right? This cell itself does not have a land in the grid 1. So basically we will traverse this complete island in grid 2, but eventually the final result, the outcome of particular this one would be like as a false, because there is not, this is not a proper island itself in the grid 1. Okay, so the result would be false, so we won't increment the count, right? So this complete island is traversed, right? Then we will come across this cell. So from here we will start the DFS and start calculating the island, right? So for this one there is a corresponding land here, right? And this one itself is an island. So for this we have a sub island, right? So the final answer would be 3, right? So that's how basically how we are going to understand how we are going to solve this problem, right? So let's try to write the code for the same. So first of all, let's create a directional array, for with the help of which we will be traversing in all the 4 directions. So it will be int array directions. So it will be new int array of 1 comma 0, 0 comma 1, minus 1 comma 0, and 0 comma minus 1. So these are all the 4 direction in which we can go, right? And then we are also going to need a count, right, to count island in the grid 2. Then we are going to have a boolean variable, like which would be our flag, with the help of which what we are going to do, we are going to identify whether this particular, let's say we had this one, right, whether this particular sub, whether this particular island, right, that we had here, is it a valid one or not. So if any place we find a cell, right, which for which correspondingly land is not there in the grid 1, we are going to turn this flag as false. Okay, so so basically what we are going to do, right, is simply we are going to write a code for finding the island. So let's write that and then we will modify it. Okay, so let's calculate the row, that would be grid 2 dot length, right, and columns is equals to grid 2 0 dot length. So these are the rows and the columns. Okay, and let's initialize count is equals to 1. Then for all the possible rows and columns, we are going to check for the starting point, right? And if that starting point is safe, right, then we are going to do the traversal or the DFS. What I meant by safe is like that should be within the grid range and that has a land, then only we are going to do the DFS. Okay, so first we are going to increase the count because it is a valid uh, because it would be a valid island. Right now we are assuming that. So basically I had initialized the count here with 1 because in the cell, right, we already had a 1. So the first ever whatsoever the island we encounter would make it 2, right, and in the final answer we would just do count minus 1 and it would give us the correct answer. Okay, so that's why to overcome this condition where they have already given 1, right? 1 they have used, so we are going to start from 1 and then increment all the counts and then finally return this count minus 1 basically. So count minus 1 represent the return the correct number of islands. Okay, so then just make, we are going to make flag is equals to true by default. We are assuming like all the current island that we are traversing in the grid 2, it is going to be right, we are right now assuming that that particular island is going to be present in the grid 1 also. But if in between somewhere that particular condition is violated, that that particular cell the land is not present, then this flag would make as false. Okay, so what we will do, we will do DFS on grid 1 and grid 2, right, I and j, right, and if that particular flag is equals to false, right, then we are going to neglect this particular island, discard it basically. So at top we have in included it as a valid sub island, assuming that it is correct, but in case our assumption comes to be opposite, we will remove it from the final answer, right, we will discard it. Okay, so that's all about this code. Now what we are going to do, we are going to do DFS. So void DFS int array grid 1 grid 2 I j. Fine. Now if it is not safe, then we will simply return. Okay, so if grid 2 I and j, basically we are going to do all the DFS on the grid 2, right? So that's why we are checking only grid 2, and for grid 1 we will use it only for checking if there is a land or not, right? So once that is done, we will make grid 2 I comma j is equals to count. We will change the value from 1 to some other value so that it can be distinguished from untraversed one, right? And if uh, the grid ij, right, so if the grid ones, if the grid ones I and j for the corresponding cell is not equal to 1, then we are going to make flag as false, right? So if for a particular cell we have an land in grid 2 but it's not there in grid 1, then we are going to return false. Okay, then we are going to, from this particular cell we are going to go in all the possible 4 directions. So for that we will use directions, right? I'll calculate di is equals to I plus direction of 0 and dj j plus direction of 1, right? And if it is safe, like the di and dj in grid 2 are safe, right, if they are safe, then we are going to do DFS in grid 2 this new di and dj, right? So that's all. So our DFS is also completed. Now the only thing that's pending is a safe function. So it would be a boolean function is safe, right? And we are going to receive a grid here, right? And I and j. And if I is greater than equals to 0 and I is less than grid dot length, like it is within the range, and j is also greater than 0 and j is less than the number of columns that we have, right? And the last condition, that is grid of I and j should be a land, right? In this case I would return true. For rest all other case we should return false, like it is not safe. So yeah, I hope I have not missed anything, but yeah, that's all like what we discussed and we have written down in code. So let's just try to run it and see. Okay, so I have to pass grid 1 also here, right? Right, so all the basic test cases are passing. Let's try to submit it. Yeah guys, so it's taking 24 millisecond to run, right? So that's the approach that we discussed to solve this problem using DFS. So if you have any questions, do ask them in the comment section. I'll be glad to answer, right? And do not forget to subscribe this channel. It really motivates me to make more content like this. So do hit the like and subscribe button. See you in the next video.